Imagine standing at the edge of a dark, twisting path where every step could lead you deeper into temptation. What if I told you that sometimes the best way to face a battle isn't to pray for strength, but to run? Yes, run. Picture the ancient warriors who fled from danger instead of standing still, their hearts racing as they left the shadows behind. Now, think about the whispers of desire that creep into our lives, enticing us to linger just a bit longer. Why do we hesitate, knowing the risks? What if the answer lies not in seeking comfort through prayer, but in the powerful act of movement? Running from the very things that threaten to ensnare us can be the ultimate act of faith. As we dive into this gripping exploration, consider the stories of those who faced similar trials. Did they seek refuge in prayer, or did they find strength in their choice to flee? The clock is ticking. Are you ready to uncover the truth that could change everything for you? Stay with me as we unravel this profound message, because what you do next could define your journey. The importance of action. In relation to prayer, there's something that's been on my mind lately. This whole idea of how we handle temptation, especially when it comes to sexual temptation. I've often found myself in prayer asking for strength, for guidance, even for deliverance from those moments when I feel most vulnerable. But here's the kicker. How often do I actually pair that prayer with tangible action? It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that just praying about it is enough. But let's be real. While prayer is powerful and essential, it's not the only tool in our toolbox. When I sit back and really think about it, action speaks volumes. Let's face it. If I'm just sitting around praying about not giving in to temptation but not doing anything to avoid it, what am I really accomplishing? It's like saying I want to lose weight while I'm munching on a bag of chips. There's a disconnect there. I've learned that taking proactive steps, like avoiding certain situations, steering clear of specific triggers, or even just having a game plan, can make all the difference. Inaction can lead to negative consequences, and I've seen it happen firsthand. The more I ignore the signs, the more likely I am to slip up. For instance, think about a time when you found yourself in a situation that you knew was risky. Maybe it was hanging out with friends who didn't share your values, or scrolling through social media late at night when you know it's a slippery slope. Each moment of inaction is a moment where you're giving temptation the upper hand. But when I make the conscious choice to act, whether it's setting boundaries, having honest conversations, or even just reaching out to a friend for support, I find that my resolve strengthens. It's a powerful thing, taking that step away from temptation rather than just hoping it will somehow pass me by. I've also realized that action isn't always about doing something drastic. Sometimes it's the small, daily choices that really set the stage for success. For me, that might mean choosing to engage in activities that uplift my spirit, or being intentional about filling my mind with positive influences. It's about creating an environment where temptation has less room to flourish. So, when I pray for help, I also remind myself to be proactive in my life choices. It's a partnership, really, my prayers and my actions working together to help me resist the pull of temptation. In the end, I've come to understand that while prayer is a vital part of my spiritual journey, it must be coupled with action. It's about taking responsibility for my choices and understanding that I have a role to play in my own life. It's not enough to hope for strength. I have to be willing to put in the effort to create the conditions necessary for that strength to manifest. Through this blend of prayer and action, I find a clearer path toward resisting temptation and living a life aligned with my values. The concept of fleeing in religious texts. Let's dive into another topic that's been a game changer for me: the concept of fleeing from immorality, particularly in the context of sexual temptation. I've often pondered the biblical instruction found in passages like 1 Corinthians 6:18, which encourages us to flee from sexual immorality. At first glance, it might seem a bit extreme, but when I take a closer look, it makes a lot of sense. There's a reason why the word flee is used instead of resist or debate. It's about taking immediate and decisive action. When I think about fleeing, I picture a scenario where I'm faced with a lion in the wild. What would my instinct be? To run, right? The same applies to situations of temptation. It's not enough to stand there and hope for the best. I need to be ready to make a quick exit. This doesn't just refer to physical situations, but also mental and emotional ones. If I find myself in an environment or mindset that's conducive to temptation, it's crucial for me to recognize that and take action to remove myself from it. In practical terms, fleeing can manifest in various ways. It could mean unfollowing certain accounts on social media that trigger unwanted thoughts or avoiding specific places where I know temptation lurks. It's about being aware of my surroundings and making choices that align with my commitment to purity. I've learned that it's not a sign of weakness to flee. Rather, it's a demonstration of strength and wisdom. I'm protecting myself from situations where I might falter, and in doing so, I'm reinforcing my commitment to live a life that honors my values. Reflecting on the biblical context, I appreciate how the idea of fleeing is rooted in a deeper understanding of our vulnerabilities. It acknowledges that as humans, we're not invincible. I often remind myself that acknowledging my weaknesses isn't defeat, it's a strategic move. By recognizing that I need to flee from situations that might compromise my integrity, I'm taking proactive steps to safeguard my heart and mind. It's about being honest with myself and understanding that some battles are best avoided altogether. Ultimately, embracing the concept of fleeing from immorality has reshaped my approach to temptation. It's not just about resisting, it's about recognizing when to step back and remove myself from potentially harmful situations. It's a powerful reminder that, in order to live a life aligned with my beliefs, I have to be willing to make tough choices. By incorporating this principle into my daily life, I'm better equipped to navigate the challenges that come my way, and I find myself growing stronger in my resolve to live a life of purity. Psychological and spiritual consequences. I've often found myself pondering the emotional and mental toll that sexual sin can take on a person. It's like walking through a fog. Initially, it feels fine, even thrilling. But as time goes on, the fog thickens, and clarity becomes elusive. When I reflect on my past encounters with temptation, I realize how easily I became entangled in a web of guilt and shame. The fleeting thrill often gave way to a lingering sense of discontent, as if I was trying to fill a void with something that ultimately left me emptier. The emotional scars from engaging in sexual sin can be profound. There's an internal conflict that arises, one that pits desire against morality. Each time I gave in, I felt a piece of my self-respect slip away, replaced by a haunting voice that would whisper, "You're not good enough. You've failed again." This negative self-talk becomes a cycle, feeding into anxiety and depression. I began to dread the moments of solitude because it was in those quiet times that I was confronted with the weight of my actions and the emotional baggage they carried. Spiritually, the consequences are just as severe. When I reflect on my relationship with God during those times, I notice a disconnect that's hard to ignore. Sin creates a barrier between us, and every time I engaged in behavior that I knew was wrong, I felt that barrier solidify. It's as if I was building a wall brick by brick with each choice I made. I often found myself questioning my worthiness of God's love and forgiveness, which only deepened my sense of isolation and despair. Interestingly, the relationship between mental health and spiritual well-being became increasingly clear to me. When I chose to confront temptation and strive for purity, I noticed a change in my overall mindset. It's like the fog began to lift, and I could see the light again. The act of resisting temptation didn't just bring spiritual rewards, it also nurtured my mental health. I felt lighter, more at peace, and increasingly aware of the joy that comes from living a life aligned with my values and beliefs. Ultimately, I've come to understand that avoiding or confronting sexual temptation isn't just about following rules or guidelines. It's about nurturing a healthier, more fulfilling life. The decision to resist temptation impacts not only my spiritual health, but also my emotional and mental well-being. It's a journey worth taking, one that leads to freedom rather than the shackles of guilt and shame. Practical strategies for resisting sexual temptation. Navigating the waters of sexual temptation can be daunting, but I've discovered some practical strategies that have made a world of difference in my life. One of the most effective methods I've adopted is the concept of accountability. Having someone, a friend, a mentor, or even a group who knows my struggles and supports my journey has been invaluable. It's a reminder that I'm not alone in this fight. When I share my challenges, I find strength in vulnerability, and that connection often provides the encouragement I need to stay on the right path. Another strategy I've found helpful is the intentional avoidance of situations that could lead to temptation. Whether it's steering clear of certain social gatherings or being mindful of the media I consume, I've learned that setting boundaries is crucial. For instance, I've started filtering the content I watch or read, choosing materials that uplift and inspire, rather than those that might lead me astray. It's not about living in fear. Rather, it's about proactively creating an environment that fosters purity and encourages positive choices. Creating healthy habits has also played a significant role in my resistance to temptation. I've found that establishing a routine centered around spiritual practices, like prayer, meditation, and reading uplifting literature, has fortified my resolve. These habits not only ground me, but also remind me of my higher purpose. When I consciously choose to fill my mind with positivity and truth, I find it easier to resist momentary urges that conflict with my values. Community support is another crucial element in my strategy. Engaging in a group where we can openly discuss our struggles, share successes, and pray for one another has provided a sense of camaraderie. I've learned that there is incredible strength in collective vulnerability. When we gather and share our experiences, it reinforces the idea that we are all on this journey together, and that mutual support can be a powerful deterrent against temptation. Lastly, I've embraced the power of self-reflection. Regularly taking time to evaluate my thoughts, feelings, and actions has been instrumental in understanding my triggers and responses. Journaling has become a sanctuary for my thoughts, allowing me to process my experiences and emotions deeply. This practice helps me to recognize patterns and identify areas where I need to strengthen my resolve. The more I engage in self-reflection, the more equipped I feel to face temptation head-on, armed with insights and a clearer sense of purpose. Conclusion. In my journey of understanding the importance of action in relation to prayer, I've come to appreciate the delicate balance between spiritual devotion and practical steps. The reality is that prayer is indispensable, but it must be coupled with deliberate action to truly make a difference. I've witnessed how effective it can be to engage both my heart and my hands in resisting temptation, and the transformation that follows is nothing short of liberating. As I navigate this path, I remain committed to fostering a life that values purity, accountability, and community support. It's a commitment that requires vigilance and intention, but the rewards, mental clarity, spiritual growth, and emotional peace are worth every effort. I've learned that the journey is ongoing, filled with ups and downs, but each step I take brings me closer to the person I aspire to be. Practical strategies for resisting sexual temptation. When it comes to resisting sexual temptation, I've learned that having concrete strategies is essential. It's not enough to simply wish away the urges or pray for strength. I need to take proactive steps to protect myself. One of the most effective strategies I've found is accountability. This means having someone in my life who I can trust and confide in about my struggles. Whether it's a close friend, a mentor, or even a support group, sharing my experiences and challenges with someone else helps me feel less isolated. It's like having a safety net. When I'm tempted to stray, I know there's someone who will hold me accountable and remind me of my values. In addition to accountability, I've discovered that setting clear boundaries is vital. This involves identifying situations or environments that lead to temptation and making a conscious effort to avoid them. For instance, I've had to reconsider some of my social habits, especially when it comes to going out with friends. If I know that certain places or activities might trigger temptation, I've learned to say no and find alternative ways to spend my time. This proactive approach not only helps me resist temptation, but also allows me to engage in healthier, more fulfilling activities that align with my values. Another strategy that has proven effective is the practice of mindfulness. I've started to pay more attention to my thoughts and feelings, especially when temptation arises. By recognizing the early signs of temptation, like feelings of boredom or loneliness, I can take steps to redirect my focus before things escalate. This could mean engaging in a hobby, going for a walk, or reaching out to someone for a conversation. The key is to be aware of what's going on in my mind and to have a plan in place for when those feelings surface. It's all about being proactive rather than reactive. Creating a positive environment is also crucial in my journey to resist sexual temptation. I've found that surrounding myself with supportive people who share my values makes a significant difference. This could be friends who prioritize healthy relationships or even participating in community groups that focus on personal growth and accountability. When I'm in an environment that promotes purity and respect, it becomes easier to resist temptation. On the flip side, when I'm around people who don't share those values, I find it much more challenging. So, I've made it a point to invest my time and energy in relationships that uplift and inspire me. Lastly, I've realized the importance of forming healthy habits. This means not just avoiding temptation, but also actively seeking out activities that promote a fulfilling and balanced life. Whether it's engaging in physical fitness, pursuing a new skill, or volunteering in my community, staying busy with positive pursuits keeps my mind off temptation. Plus, these habits contribute to my overall well-being and happiness, making it easier to stay grounded in my values. It's about creating a lifestyle that naturally steers me away from temptation, while filling my life with purpose and joy. As we wrap up our exploration of sexual sin, let's take a moment to reflect on the powerful guidance God offers us. Remember, it's not just about praying, it's about taking action. When temptation knocks, we're called to run, not linger. Think about Joseph. He didn't hesitate when faced with Potiphar's wife. He fled. Could you imagine the impact of that choice in your own life? Now let's dig deeper. What does it truly mean to run from temptation? It's about setting boundaries and making choices that honor God. Are you ready to take that bold step? As we conclude, I encourage you to consider your own battles. Are there areas in your life where you need to flee? Don't just sit back. Transform your desire into a decision. How can you actively pursue a life that reflects God's truth? And remember, this is a journey. You're not alone in this fight. Reach out to others, share your struggles, and seek accountability. Together, we can stand strong against the tides of temptation. So, what's your next move? Dive into the comments and share your thoughts. Let's keep this conversation going. Stay tuned, because the best is yet to come. Cirken Anderson in Brownter, Soite Kantienbeer.